So you are hearing the voice of Jess Robertson she's the chief scientist for HPC from NIWA, which is the National Institute of Weather Atmospheric Research of New Zealand, and also home of the largest supercomputer, if I'm not wrong, in New Zealand, or soon to be, and big supporter of multi-core world.
For those of you that don't know what NIWA is, for our US colleagues, are basically like NOAA. We do things with water around New Zealand, whether that's in the atmosphere, under the ground, in the oceans, as ice, all of those sorts of bits and pieces. And underlying that, we have a bunch of science infrastructure and advanced technology that we run. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about today. I'm sort of riffing, I guess, on Nicholas's, what's the sort of the big idea that we can bring to this conference. So my big idea, which was kind of highlighted, I guess, in the previous talk and the discussion, is that small is beautiful. Why come and do science in New Zealand? It's because we are small. It's a little bit intimidating, I guess, as you know, despite the fact that we do have New Zealand's biggest supercomputer, it's teeny tiny in comparison to the sorts of, you know, hundreds of petabytes that folks were throwing around last night at the dinner. But just because something's small doesn't mean it's not valuable. Who knows what this thing is? Just yell it out. It is an engine. What sort of engine? It's a Rutherford engine. This is the engine that Rocket Lab built, Peter Beck and the team, to launch rockets from New Zealand. They're not big rockets. This is not SpaceX. You don't get on the big bus, but actually small rockets can be really useful, particularly if what you want to do is put something small up in the sky really quickly. And New Zealand is one of the very few nations in the world that launches rockets from its own soil. I don't want to sort of, you know, kick the Australians. It's a bit of a national pastime, but they spent billions of dollars on their space agency. I think they launched about 2 rockets. We do it nearly every month, nearly every week. So yes, there's a whole bunch of technical expertise and technology and fantastic science and things that go into the team being able to do this. Personally, as an ex-policy person, I used to run innovation policy at MB. It's good to hear the shout out to the Ed and Hillary Fellows. It was a nice bit that we did. But actually, I do want to highlight the fact that part of the reason we launch rockets from New Zealand is because of this thing, which is the Outer Space and High Altitude Activities Act 2017. You'll notice that 2017, when this act came into being, is a long time after the founding of Rocket Lab. And what Rocket Lab was able to do was to talk to regulators and policymakers and government and create an environment where they could launch to space from New Zealand legally and safely and manage all of the sovereign risks and so on that go with that. So despite the fact that I'm not trying to claim that the New Zealand government has, you know, massively launched a fantastic new darling of the space industry, but there's an important role here for policymakers and regulators. And I want to reflect on what that means for AI, which is sort of a bit closer to where we're talking about it. And I guess this is kind of my thesis, is our applications of AI are stuck in the uncanny valley. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that we, at the moment when we talk about AI, we basically are trying to effectively replace humans. We're kind of saying, hey, we're going to use the same decision-making framework that we have already. It's got a human in there somewhere. So I've got some kind of process that's like, I've got some data, and there's a human that kind of looks at the data and comes to some conclusion and then makes a decision, right? And a lot of what we hear is, well, it's just, you know, the human, we can use more data, we can do machine learning, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And the trouble is, it doesn't work. And to illustrate why it doesn't work, I'll give you an example. So NIWA, we're interested in coastal inundation, climate change, sea level rise. We're going to have entire communities that are going to go underwater. We saw that in Westport a couple of years ago. We've seen it on the Kapiti coast. We've seen it all over the place. And so we can go and we can do the HPC. We do our models. We go and say, hey, these are the areas which are going to get inundated under our different climate scenarios. We hand that over to the decision makers, and the decision makers go, thanks, NIWA, that's great. Right, I'm going to go and change my zoning decisions as a local council. And what happens? some old white guy goes to the High Court and says, hey, you've just nuked my property values. You guys are dicks, right? Now, we can all sit here, I think, as scientists and rational people and go, well, they're still going to lose their house in 50 years because it's going to go underwater. The fact of the matter is that actually this process, this legal process, this social process is actually really, really important. The reason it's really important from a policy perspective is it actually provides the why. What is my regulatory system trying to achieve? What do we collectively want this regulatory system to do? Is it purely to make a decision about, hey, this house can go here or this house can go here? Or is it actually, as a country, collectively, how are we going to deal with this risk that we've got from rising sea levels? And I think the issue that we have when we start taking this view of machine learning that is just this green arrow and ignore this blue arrow as politics and social stuff down the track, is we lose this conversation that is really, really necessary. And that can crop up in really interesting ways, right? So if I'm talking about, for example, flood predictions, maybe I'm going to go and optimize my machine learning so that it does the best job of predicting flood predictions. But if the aim of the regulatory system is not to predict flood predictions really well, but it's actually to help New Zealand manage risk, maybe I'm answering the wrong problem. So I guess kind of the thing that I'm saying is that actually this process is really important because much and all as nice machine learners, we would like to assume the decision-making context is fixed. Someone decides the policy, we do our machine learning on the inside. In reality, it's not. It's very fluid. We can introduce the Outer Space Act and completely open up a new economic area of New Zealand. So to make this a bit more concrete, I'll give you another example from some work that NIWA does. This is our big research vessel, the Tangaroa. It goes around Antarctica, New Zealand, does all of the usual sciencey things that vessels do. And we use it to do, every year we go out and we sample all of the sea life around the Chatham Rise, offshore here from Christchurch, around the North Island, and we work out where should we set the fisheries catch limits to be. And we sort of say, this is what we think the fish look like out there. We handle that over to our colleagues at MPI. We've got some of those folks in the room today. I'm not picking on you. And then MPI goes into conclave, and around November, they come out and we get the white smoke coming out from the building behind the beehive. And they say, this is the size of the crayfish fishery for Kaikoura. And all of the fishermen go, well, fuck, you've just destroyed my business. And the whole thing goes to court. And it's not just the businesses. Actually, it might be the environmentalists decide, actually, MPI has done a crap job. We don't like it. We're going to take them to court as well. So the question that I guess I come to is that if I was coming at this purely from an AI perspective saying, well, how do I do a better job of doing my role as NIWA and providing that information to MPI, then I might say, well, I need to do a better job of ecosystem modelling. I want to understand exactly where the catch limits sit. And I have a very, very limited conversation that goes through there. I guess the question I start to ask is, well, what if we could regulate differently based on the fact that we have this AI tool? So instead of having MPI go into conclave every November and then give a result that people can't plan around, what if we actually had the AI sitting online with the data coming in from all of the different bits that we have going, and we can do all of this stuff and actually have that live so people can see what's going on. As the fishing reports come in, they can see what the next year is going to look like and they can plan with some clarity. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why this is a hard thing to do. Does it restrict the minister's decision-making ability? Does it change the role of what the minister is able to do? These sorts of conversations are, right, I'm nearly done. These sorts of conversations, I think, that's the real bit of policy that policymakers want to talk about. And unless we're kind of having those conversations, all of the rest of the stuff here it's just technology and we'll never engage them. So I guess I'm going to finish there. Decision-making, yes, needs more than explainable AI. Starting small might help. So if you want to talk about that, very happy to have a chat. Thank you.